start this review, let's start off with the design. The design is actually really well made. It has an aluminum alloy build on the side and a glass back. Now, the front is also made out of glass, so it just overall has a premium feel. Also, it has a very similar design to the new iPhones, as it's not curved in the same way as the ones that were found on the iPhone X, the iPhone 8, or anything after the iPhone 5. It's not very curved, it's more of a boxy design, and honestly, it feels great in the hand. What you're definitely going to notice though is how small this phone is, especially now in 2023. You see phones with 6.7 inch displays, hell, even 6.9 inch displays. This thing is extremely small. It's a 3.5 inch display that is an IPS LCD, but honestly, you can't really tell that it's a low resolution or that it's even 13 years old in terms of its actual display quality. It looks really good, and it's its first Retina display, so you can't see any pixels on the screen. It looks great, it looks pretty bright, and yes, even though it's very small, overall, it does look very good considering it's almost 13 years old. One thing to also note is that there's a 30-pin connector, which is kind of annoying because you can't put it on any side. You have to put it on a specific side to actually charge it, which is kind of a downer. Next, let's talk about this performance. It's an Apple A4 chip with 45 nanometers process, which is honestly not great. Which, if you think about it, there's a lot of current processors that are about 4 nanometers, 5 nanometers, 6 nanometers, not 45 nanometers. So this is a very large chip, but one that is not powerful at all. So as a result, the performance, especially on iOS 7.1.2, which is its latest update, is not amazing, not as bad as I would say the iPad 2 or something like the iPhone 4S on iOS 9.3.5, but it isn't great. Now, I don't have any games or anything on this phone, but I have had this phone in the past, and I will say basic games, very, very, very basic games will handle it okay, but anything besides that will not handle it fine, and most games, basically probably like 90% of games, will not be supported. You'll usually have to find the older app, or you just won't be able to download it because it's so old. However, most non-third-party apps will work totally fine, just as the weather app, the Photos app, calendar app, clock app, maps app, anything like that will work totally fine. So, let's talk about this camera. It's a 5 megapixel 720p video recording camera, which is good because it was the first to do in its kind, especially impressive for 2010, but nowadays 720p video recording is not impressive at all. We also have the first front-facing camera for an iPhone, which is actually pretty great because you can do video calls, things like that, even though most people won't be doing video calls on this thing, but you can, and it's a VGA video recorder. So even though it isn't great, I will say that most photos on the front-facing camera, because of how small the screen is, it will look fine. Here's a photo we have right here with HDR on, and honestly, even though the detail isn't great, the overall exposure is handled pretty well, and even though there isn't much detail or much colors at all, it is completely usable, and it looks fine on this sort of screen. As you can see right there, you can see it didn't overexpose anything, and it didn't really underexpose anything, besides maybe the chairs. It did sort of underexpose it and darken the shadows a little bit too much, but besides that, it looks usable at best. Now I'm going to show you a video test that I did. And here's the speaker quality. On the iPhone 4, 720p video. Let's try to focus on something here. There we go, it does have autofocus, so that's something. Not great autofocus. And another thing to note is that it's very, very, almost feels zoomed in. Yeah, so as you could see right there, what I was saying about it being zoomed in is that most cameras nowadays are have a very wide field of view. But this camera feels just extremely zoomed in and does not have a wide field of view at all. For instance, my camera right here would not feel zoomed in. This feels extremely zoomed in, especially considering that there's only a single camera. There's no ultra wide, there's no zoom, anything like that. Obviously you could do digital zoom, but I'm just telling you right now, any kind of zoom will be horrendous. Even if it's like 1.5 times zoom, it's not good. So that's just something to know right there. As you can see by the photo quality, it's usable for FaceTime calls, things like that. Not great for selfies at all. There's no auto exposure. There's no really anything. There's no autofocus or anything like that. It is very just average, no, underperforming. It's really just below average. And honestly, colors are terrible. Detail is terrible. Noise is terrible, but it is usable for FaceTime calls. That's all I'll say. Here's a video test now on it. This is a 480p video test on the iPhone 4. And yeah, not great at all. Actually, I am wrong about the auto exposure. I believe there is actually auto exposure. But yeah, still does not look great, and the auto exposure does not do well at all, as you can see. But yeah. So yeah, you can see right there, it is not great. It is really underperforming here. But for 2010, it was totally just actually amazing. But nowadays, it is terrible. So overall, the camera experience for 13 years old is okay. It will do a lot better than other 13-year-old phones. That's definitely for sure. However, this is definitely not a top contender, top performer, anything like that. Even for something in, you know, even a budget phone, even compared to a budget phone, even compared to like a probably $20 phone that you can find, there's no way it is worse than this. This is just really bad for 2023. So, to end off this review, is this phone worth it in 2023? Well, it isn't. I'm just going to say it right off the bat. The only thing that I would recommend it for is just as a timeless sort of design, because this is just something that Steve Jobs wanted to make perfect, and it looks just absolutely amazing. This is what Steve Jobs really wanted the iPhone to be, because this is just an amazing design. It does have a very small display. However, at the time, it looked great. And even now, it does look great. So I would recommend you checking it out just as kind of a fun sort of, maybe something that you can, you know, show off, or something that is something that you put, you know, in a display case, something like that. It's just a really timeless design. And it's something that we definitely should remember. And we actually take a lot of things from the iPhone, such as this design, for sure. And this thing did do a lot of things right. However, in 2023, I would not recommend purchasing it for a main device. I wouldn't recommend purchasing anything under an iPhone 7 in 2023, honestly, because all of those things under that are completely outdated. So anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Stay tuned for more videos because they are coming very soon. So yeah, see you guys later.